Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Casey Porter joined by Austin Brubaker. It is Wednesday night in the big town. It's a little bit earlier, but I've got a ball game to get to. And we wanted to talk about the Kirby Yates deal and some of the non-roster invites. So, Austin, how the heck are you, man?
Man, I'm doing really good, Casey. It's really good to be able to interact with you again. It's just always fun to be able to talk some Dodgers baseball, especially when there's a little bit of news. I know we talked a little bit about this when we went on. I think the last time that we were on was when the initial reportings for Kirby Yates was just starting to come out last week. We went on like a Tuesday. But now it seems like a little bit more official. Not technically reported by the Dodgers, but it seems like he's passed the physical. Corresponding move that this signing is going to indicate hasn't been made yet. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about that and be able to interact with some of the people here at Dodgers Daily. Just always amazing. Every opportunity I get to do that.
Yeah, so I've been refreshing all day because the Kirby Yates deal, the roster is at 40. So if they so here's why he hasn't been made official on the roster yet is because they don't have a spot for him. So something has to clear just to get him on the 40-man roster. So I've been refreshing this 40-man roster all day long and trying to see if there has been a corresponding move made. And the last move that was made, I'm going to flip this over so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. If you look at and I'm going to make I'm going to start the virtual camera for you, Austin, so you can see this as well. And so if you look on here, if you just type in Google search Dodgers transactions and keep refreshing, eventually what will happen is you will see that before Kirby Yates gets put on this list right here, you can see Joe Jock was the last one to be invited to as a non-roster invitee. Zaire Hope, Chris Oakey, all these guys. So what will happen is you will see the corresponding move before you see the Dodgers add Kirby Yates to their official roster because they have to clear one spot. So I wanted to kind of give everybody a heads up. Just type in Dodgers transactions and then just keep refreshing and keep waiting to see when that transaction actually happens. So that's what I'm going to be doing all night.
Oh, I know. I've been doing that. I have notifications on for, I think, the Dodgers social media pages, as well as some of the main people that do a lot of reporting for baseball. So if anything breaks like that, I'll get notifications that way. So that's hopefully what I'll be able to do. But refreshing social media, refreshing the transaction page, because I think the corresponding move is so fascinating given Kirby Yates. I think if you just take a look at this roster right now, there doesn't seem to be room for Kirby Yates unless you remove somebody that's specifically eligible for the major league roster. Because right now, if you look at Fangraphs and the projected roster for the Dodgers, the person that was moved off the roster adding Kirby Yates, and this is at having 41 players on the roster, so somebody's going to get removed. But the person that was removed from the roster was Alex Vesia. Now, Alex Vesia is not going to spend a day in Oklahoma City.
Only because he could.
That's the only reason why he is projected to spend down there, because he's the only person out of the bullpen that has the ability to go down to Oklahoma City once you add in a Kirby Yates, which leads to a lot of speculation as far as what the corresponding move once this becomes official. I do not and am not expecting this to drag on for another 2 weeks until pitchers and catchers report. I believe this is something that is going to take place over the course of the next couple of days. And if it does take place over the course of the next couple of days or minutes, hopefully, cross our fingers, then there's going to have to be a corresponding move in order to make room for Kirby Yates onto this 40-man roster. And then you got to determine what does a 26-man roster look like and what is the strategy going forward for this Dodgers team. Right now, the strategy seems to be bring in as much talent as you possibly can. And the Dodgers got probably two of the best, if not the two very best relievers that were on the free agent market based on their performance over the past couple of years.
So you mentioned that Alex Vesia was the one that was listed as being the guy that would get removed. And that's only because if you look at options over here, Ha-Sung Kim, not a pitcher, right? And if you look all the way through Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, then you get down to the pitchers, Blake Snell, no. Tony Gonsolin, yes. So maybe he could be one. Okay, Roki Sasaki, who knows? Okay, but look through here. No options, no options, no options, no options, right? And then whenever you look through, the only one who actually does have a minor league option is Alex Vesia. So that's why we've been saying all offseason long, and I know you're probably tired of hearing it, but this is the complications we have been talking about. And we've also mentioned, you said it just a second ago, it appears that the Dodgers, you're a statistician, you like to crunch the numbers, Austin. And so you like to figure out, okay, well, we can't make a move until we have everything from a numerical and mathematical perspective figured out. Then we can go get what we want and then plug it in. So we've said a couple of different times, I think the Dodgers usually operate that way, but right now they're like, to hell with it. We're going to go get the best guys that we possibly can. We're going to go get who we want. And then when we're 40 over, when we have 41 instead of 40, when we have 27 instead of 26, at that point, if everybody is healthy, then we will figure out what to do from there. So it is a messy situation. We don't know and the things that we don't know is there anybody that might be, of course, you can't add your 60-day ILs until spring training starts, which complicates this as well. So I don't think it's going to be that situation. I don't think he would agree to wait another 2 or 3 weeks to be official on the roster. Maybe he will. So that's one option there. But still, that doesn't fix your 26-man roster. So even if he agrees, okay, we're going to wait for 2 weeks until pitchers and catchers report, and we're going to put our 60-day ILs on the IL, that clears that spot for him. Even if you do that, that doesn't even come close to solving your problems as far as what you're going to do about the active roster. At that point, then you could say, okay, we're going to kick the can down the road. We're going to wait for spring training because that gives us another month or so to figure out exactly who's going to be healthy. And then we're just going to play it by ear and see what happens at that point. But again, the big part of this is the only ace in the holes that you have. This is why we keep talking about, this is why Michael Grove hasn't been cut. This is why James Outman hasn't been cut. Because the only options you have are either DFA people and just lose them to trade, or send them down to the minors because they have options. And the only two guys that really, Tony Gonsolin, Alex Vesia, and Roki Sasaki. And we've heard that Roki Sasaki is going to start with the big club. So It's a mess. It's a good mess. It's a first world problem.
It is a very first world problem, and this is something that I don't think either of us really anticipated. I think we were guessing that the Dodgers would probably try to go after a high leverage reliever, although we didn't even anticipate, because it's outside of their character, to go after a Tanner Scott and sign him to a longer term deal. Just not something that the organization has done in the past for a lot of these relievers. What I think is taking place right now is a little bit of, it's a combination of a bunch of things. One, it's very clear that this front office is trying to be as aggressive as they possibly can to avoid paying for things at the trade deadline. It seems like that is something that they are trying to avoid. And so acquiring as much talent as they possibly can, in combination with the reflection of where things are at on the market. Things were not moving a whole lot on the reliever market for a lot of other teams across Major League Baseball. It's to the point where it's almost to the end of January, and Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates were available. So after the Dodgers went out and got a Tanner Scott, I think they had an evaluation of a player like a Kirby Yates, who was a high leverage reliever for the Texas Rangers this past season and put up some insanely good numbers, some of the best percentiles and some really good expected statistics, as well as the swing and miss stuff and profile that the Dodgers like. I think they saw a pitcher like a Kirby Yates, who was not getting signed by other organizations. They saw that as an opportunity to potentially upgrade from what they have currently in the bullpen. Not to say what they currently had in the bullpen was bad in any shape or form, but if you have somebody that you evaluate and you think that he's better and you're going out there and trying to win a World Series, why would you not do everything that you can to try to get the player that is better and then figure out how to make the rest of the roster work from there? I think that is the state where the Dodgers are at. They evaluated Kirby Yates, found another high leverage reliever who did not pitch into October last year, which I think is another important aspect, because many of these pitchers for the Dodgers pitched late into October because the Dodgers obviously won the World Series. And that is taxing for the Dodgers pitchers. And you can't rely on all of those guys to get the exact same level of workload that they did last year and expect them to be as effective as they can be during the 2025 postseason as they were during the 2024 postseason. So adding some other guys, maybe some guys didn't pitch as long, different arms that the Dodgers can utilize, and some guys that you evaluated that are at least a little towards the top or towards the back end of your bullpen, I think is a really good reason why the Dodgers brought in a Kirby Yates, even though it's not something that we were expecting. Where they go from here, I think both Casey and I think it would logistically make sense, not knowing any sort of injury that's taking place, which it's totally possible that more things are taking place than are being made public, would be one of the guys that does not have any sort of minor league options, because you do not have room right now to even have an Alex Vesia on the Dodgers 26-man roster. He is going to be on the 26-man roster. So then it comes down to who do the Dodgers potentially move off of to make room on the 40-man roster and the 26-man roster for Kirby Yates?
That's exactly the question. And then if you're saying, well, Vesia is the only guy with an option, him and Gonsolin, I guess. But then here's how it gets even more complicated than that. So let's say that you send Vesia down. Let's say the season started tomorrow and you send Vesia down, and that puts you at 40 on the 40-man roster. Then it puts you at 26 on the active roster. So how do you get Alex Vesia back to the major leagues? So I know what your response would be. Well, we'll just send Vesia down. We'll bring him up. We'll send him down. Whenever we need him, we'll send him back up. You can't do that because there's nobody left on that 26-man roster or even the 40-man roster right now other than Roki Sasaki and Tony Gonsolin that you can do that with. I don't think they'll do that with Roki Sasaki because, A, I don't think he'll like being in the minor leagues like Yoshinobu Yamamoto didn't, and B, it's already going to be difficult enough for Sasaki to try to adjust to Major League Baseball, to adjust to the travel, to adjust to being in such a big environment. If you ask him to adjust coming to America 2 years early, and then you ask him to adjust to come to America, Oklahoma City, LA, Oklahoma City, and back and forth, and you add that adjustment period to it as well, that's going to make it impossible for him. So I think Roki Sasaki is either up or he's down. I don't see him as an up-down guy right now. So even if it is out, the bigger problem you have, it's not that, hey, yeah, you could send Alex Vesia down to AAA, which is ridiculous because it's a ridiculous idea even to think, because the Dodgers just avoided arbitration with him today, right? And he was like maybe the best reliever in all the game of baseball last year. I mean, his ERA last year was like 1.5, right?
He was really good,
incredible. So the idea that Alex Vesia having a minor league option should be a idea that is not even an idea. I mean, just don't even consider, like we were talking with Gavin Lux. So that leaves you with Tony Gonsolin. And then he's scheduled to be your sixth starter. And then I'm going to say it one more time. The biggest problem is there is not that last spot. And then Shohei Ohtani, first of all, isn't a 14th pitcher yet because he's not pitching yet. And so you still don't have that last spot. So once Tony Gonsolin goes to AAA, if it would have to be him at this point, okay, then he's stuck there. There until somebody gets hurt, Tony Gonsolin has no path to the major leagues. Now, that's exactly where all of the names are hypothetical, but that's the exact math. None of that math is hypothetical.
Yes, no, none of that math is hypothetical. There could be hypotheticals. There could be injuries. There could be the Dodgers taking very much advantage of some sort of injured list with some of these pitchers, but that's not something I think that the Dodgers can and should be relying upon through the entirety of the 2025 campaign. I think there has to be a little bit of room, a little bit of buffer to make sure your guys are as rested as you possibly can be, which leads to the guys that I think the most obvious guys that you would be looking for the potential trade options that could be taking place, or some guys that the Dodgers decide to move off of in the when Kirby Yates becomes part of this Dodgers team, assuming that this does not happen in 2 weeks when pitchers and catchers report, or I believe in 12 days, pitchers and catchers will be reporting. I don't believe that it's going to take 12 days to make this signing official. In fact, I think it's going to happen within either tonight or within the next couple of days, just based on, it sounds like he already passed his physical, which means I think the Dodgers should be reporting it very shortly. So I think the obvious names are the guys that don't have minor league options, guys that are very much valuable parts of this Dodgers team, but in order to make room and make fit part of the roster, they have to do something like this. And it's guys like potentially a Ryan Brazier, potentially an Anthony Bonda, potentially even a guy like a Dustin May, only because those guys do not have minor league options. And there is an argument that, especially in the case of the first two, Kirby Yates is the better relief pitcher than both of those guys. So he would be an upgrade when comparing to them. And then in the case of Dustin May, if they decide to go down that path, it just becomes a question about health for Dustin May during this upcoming season. And if they are not comfortable with that, with him being his last year entering free agency, that could also be an option that the Dodgers go down. It's not good options that the Dodgers have because they don't want to move off of any of these guys, but these might be the necessary moves, assuming that there is not more taking place throughout the course of the offseason that we do not know of. These are the necessary moves to make the math work on this roster. So it's going to be fascinating to see what move they make. Those would be the first names that I would be anticipating. If it's somebody not on that list, I have very serious concerns about some of the injuries, or the Dodgers would be betting on there being a lot of fallout that happens through the course of spring training in order to make this math work, which is a scary bet to be able to make.
Yep, this is Kirby Yates that you're looking at right here. So at that point, if it's Ryan Brazier or Anthony Bonda, the question, I guess, would be, is Kirby Yates better than either one of those two? I mean, let's not forget, okay, it's easy to say, yes, he is, and you look on here and he is fantastic last year. 1.17 ERA, his expected numbers were ridiculous. Okay, he had a 12.41 K per nine, a 4.01 walks per nine, which is good, right? Home runs per nine, less than a half a home run per 9 innings. Kirby Yates was fantastic, okay? So I'm not trying to make the case that Kirby Yates isn't great, but this looks like it's going to have to be a Kirby Yates versus somebody who would have been on the 26. This isn't Kirby Yates versus Michael Grove. This is not Kirby Yates versus James Outman. This is Kirby Yates versus somebody who is going to be on the 26-man roster, unless he waits till spring training and there's somebody that's going to go on the 60-day IL like a Michael Kopech that we don't know about, right? Mm-hmm. Unless it's something like that. This is not a Kirby Yates versus Michael Grove. This is a Kirby Yates versus, as you said, Ryan Brazier. Yes. This is a Kirby Yates versus Anthony Bonda. A Kirby Yates versus somebody else, not Alex Vesia, or a Kirby Yates versus Dustin May. So the question is Kirby Yates better than any of those people? Now, I think if you look at last year, you would say yes, right? Mm-hmm. He's a little bit older, but let's not forget, the Dodgers were down 2-1 to San Diego, correct? In the National League Divisional Series. And they had two options. Landon Knack, which to me is a fine option, but still a rookie. I would have been sweating my ass off. And by the way, I sent Landon a message that day of, hey, this is going to be the hardest thing you ever did. You don't have to go be perfect. You don't have to shut them out. Just go out there and put your team in a position to win. Leave it up to everybody else to win the game. That's all you got to do, right? And that was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and he responded back, hey, I'm fired up. And then about an hour later, we find out they're coming with a bullpen game. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to lie, I love Landon Knack, but when I heard that, I was like, whew. I mean, it was like, okay, so then you're going, okay, well, who's it going to be? Let's not forget, Ryan Brazier got the first 4 outs of that game, right? Yes. So when Ryan Brazier left that game, the Dodgers had 2 at-bats and were already ahead 5-0. You know who came in for Ryan Brazier after him? It was Anthony Bonda. So you know who threw the first 6 outs of that Game 4, which, hey, if the Dodgers lose Game 4 of the National League Divisional Series and get beat by the Padres, so if Ryan Brazier goes out and gets up a 3 spot in the first inning and the Dodgers lose that game, Dave Roberts is probably fired. The Dodgers fans right now are losing their minds instead of celebrating this dynasty we're building. And there's still this just kind of just gut feeling inside of you. But because Ryan Brazier took the baseball and got the first 4 out scoreless, Anthony Bonda went the next 2 out scoreless. By the time those 2 guys left the game, the Dodgers had a 5-0 lead, and that I had been doing all day long was finally an exhale. Like, oh, damn, we're going to win this game. And you can thank, obviously, the offense, but you can thank Ryan Brazier and Anthony Bonda for the 6 outs that they gave to get that bullpen game started right. Without that, the Dodgers probably don't win. So when you say, is Kirby Yates better than Ryan Brazier? I don't know, man. That's a tough one because I saw Ryan Brazier. He's pretty dear to my heart right now. Is he better than Anthony Bonda? I don't know, man. I'm not willing to say anybody. I mean, just what they did for this team last year, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to just definitively say that.
Yeah,
that's kind of where
it's
I'm
really
at.
tough because there is no doubt, especially in that game, and it was not just exclusive to that game. It was also the other games that happened during the postseason. Both Ryan Brazier and Anthony Bonda made a difference, and they were a crucial part as to why the Dodgers won a World Series in 2024. That was 2024. So the question is, in 2025, who is going to be better? Because I think a lot of times we as fans, and I'm not accusing you of this, Casey,
sure,
I'm just saying
understood.
Us as fans, oftentimes weigh very heavily the big moments that happen in the postseason, or if somebody does incredibly well during the postseason. And I think that that's in part a good thing because we've seen them succeed at the very highest of levels. And so we put a lot of weight towards people succeeding at the very highest of levels. And sometimes that could potentially cloud the judgment of what we have, because what is important now, yes, it was incredibly important and crucial what Ryan Brazier and Anthony Bonda were able to do in 2024. What we're looking at ahead right now is what is going to happen during the 2025 season. And there is a lot of indicators that Kirby Yates is going to be a better pitcher than Ryan Brazier and Anthony Bonda. Looking at the regular season stats, looking at the fact that
this is Brazier here, by the way, that you're looking at. Yeah.
Looking for the fact that with Kirby Yates, he was in the 100th percentile, the best in the game of baseball in his expected ERA and his expected batting average. That is very good, or very highly correlated with some following season's success, even more so than the previous season's ERA. He was among some of the best pitchers in baseball as a relief pitcher, which was really, really good. As good as Ryan Brazier and as good as Anthony Bonda were, that is something that they can't say. And I think with Kirby Yates, he fits a lot of the profile with what the Dodgers like. And so I think in their evaluation, trying to be as unbiased as they can and trying not to be completely clouded by the success in the postseason, which, yes, certainly that should be weighed. Certainly that should be appreciated for what it is. With what Kirby Yates is able to do, I think he is a better pitcher at this point of his career, even though that he is older than both a Ryan Brazier and an Anthony Bonda. Both Ryan Brazier and Anthony Bonda, incredibly talented. I think Kirby Yates is just a little bit better than them. And if they have the ability to get somebody that's better and make this team a little bit better, I think that is a path that they are going to take more times than not, because the goal right now is not to relive the 2024 World Series championship. It is to win the 2025 World Series championship.
So right here, this is Ryan Brazier that you're looking at. You can see ERA at 3.54, expected ERA 3.46. So what that tells you is my coach brain says, hey, he had a good year, 3.5 ERA. Austin's analytical brain says, oh, well, that's just about the pitcher he is because all of his expected numbers are the exact same as his actual numbers, right? So really what you got from Ryan Brazier last year is what you should expect from Ryan Brazier moving forward. He had 8 strikeouts per 9, which is quite a bit lower than Kirby Yates last year. He had 1.5 walks per 9 innings, which is fantastic. That's really good. And he gave up almost a half a home run per 9 innings more than Kirby Yates did last year. That's quite a bit. I mean, when you're talking about a half a home run per 9 innings, That's a pretty big factor. Anthony Bonda here, again, his expected ERA, very good. You're talking about the difference between two really good relievers, Ryan Brazier, Anthony Bonda, and at the moment, an elite reliever in Kirby Yates. That's the difference here. Kirby Yates was elite last year. So Anthony Bonda, again, expected and actual ERA, very, very similar, okay? Which tells you that's just about what you could expect him going forward. So K per 906, pretty good. Still, that's 3 lower than Kirby Yates, right? Walks per 9, not bad. He actually walks fewer than Kirby Yates per game, but he gives almost 1 home run per 9 innings. So when you go to Kirby Yates right here and you look, here, see right here, strikeouts per 9, 1241. Walks per 9 aren't significantly higher than either Brazier or Bonda. But you look at his ERA, elite, 117. You look at the expected ERA, 186. So you would expect him probably some regression, but not in a tremendous amount. So let's say he does regress to a 2.4, a 2.5 ERA. That's still lower than either Anthony Bonda or Ryan Brazier had last year. And here's the big one, Austin. Only 0.44 home runs per 9 innings. That's a huge one right there. So the expected numbers are better. The actual numbers are better. The strikeout stuff is better, which is big because if you have Teo, Michael Conforto, and Andy Paez in the outfield, you're not great defensively. Mookie Betts will be probably a league average shortstop. Max Muncy, not a great defensive third baseman. We don't even know who's going to be at second base, right? And so the defense isn't always going to be perfect. So the strikeout stuff is big. So Kirby Yates has better strikeout stuff. He has a better ERA. He has better expected stuff. He has just about the same amount of walks. And so at that point, I mean, it's really, like you said, it's, can you just mentally move on past two guys that really helped you get past the Padres last year? And at that point, you got to remove the emotions and go with what actually the data is telling you, and the data would tell you Kirby Yates.
Yeah.
Now, that's not saying it is going to be Brazier or Bonda. I mean, again, they might wait till the spring training starts, remove the IL guys, then put Kirby Yates on the 40-man then. And then Michael Kopech might go on the 60-day or whatever. That might happen, but if that doesn't happen, that's kind of the scenario we're going over.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of really good things that you put in there. One, I think with Kirby Yates and the profile of pitcher is going to fit this team well because, as you had mentioned, this defense, if we're talking about one weakness to this Dodgers team, it would be their defense. Their defense is not going to be in the best of Major League Baseball. It's probably going to be at best a league average defensive team with what they're putting out there. You go through a lot of the defenders, and a lot of them are league average at best, if not below league average. And so I think having different pitchers, a whole lot of pitchers, which now the Dodgers are stacking pitchers that have insane swing and miss stuff, that limits the number of batted balls that teams are having and limits the impact that defense is going to have on the field. And Kirby Yates fits in with that type of game really well. And even when batted balls get put in play for Kirby Yates over the past 2 years, and especially last season, it's just not hit hard as well. Talk about the home run per fly ball ratio. It's not just that. You look at all of the numbers as far as quality contact and expected statistics that relate based on the quality contact. Not only does he get a lot of swing and miss, but when batters are able to make contact, it's not being hit hard as well, which means there's going to be a lot of easy hit balls. His ground ball percentage is above average. It's just not hit well for Kirby Yates, which fits really well with this profile that the Dodgers are going to need to have for this team. If they are not going to have the best defensive team in the world, they need guys with a lot of swing and miss and some easy plays that are going to be made on defense. I think Kirby Yates fits that profile incredibly well. And again, this is nothing against Ryan Brazier or Anthony Bonda or against anything that they have done or contributed to be part of this Dodgers team. Not in 1 second have they done anything wrong. They are both two really good relievers.
I'm forever indebted to them as a Dodgers fan, man.
Oh,
sorry.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And everyone who is a Dodgers fan absolutely should be as well for what they did in 2024. Kirby Yates, though, profiles and I believe is a better pitcher for 2025, which is why the Dodgers are making this move. And we'll see what the corresponding move is, because that's going to have very clear indication for the rest of the roster and the state of where the roster is right now as we enter spring training. We're about 22 days away from spring training games starting. Super excited, man.
Yeah. And so the IL for pitchers is now a 15-day IL. So that's over 2 weeks. And no doubt the Dodgers will use the IL to clear spots, because if you put a pitcher on a 15-day IL, then that you can take them off the 26, but it doesn't remove them from the 40-man roster. So you still have to have all those 40-man roster spots, right? Which, again, you'll get those back with all the 60-day IL guys. But having said that, 15 days is a long time, man. I mean, how many times are you going to put Tyler Glasnow on a 15-day? How many times are you going to put any of these guys on a 15-day IL? How many times are you going to do that?
Yeah, the goal is not to do that a whole lot, but the goal is also to try to limit as much innings for October. So how they utilize it, I have no idea how they're going to utilize it. I wouldn't anticipate this being a long-term strategy for the entire season as being the up-down train. They can't be for the entire season.
Yeah, the 15-day IL cannot be the up-down train, because, again, you're not going to put Tyler Glasnow on the 15-day IL more than once per year unless it's legit. Like, you're not going to find a phantom injury just so you can clear a roster spot and remove Tyler Glasnow and do that manufactured phantom-wise just to get that roster spot open because you need fresh arms. You're not going to do that more than once. You're not going to do that more than once with any of these guys, I wouldn't think. Certainly not more than twice. So they will use the IL, and that does clear a 26-man roster spot when you put a pitcher on the 26 or on the 15-day. But that's just not the up-down train. So, again, we're having a difficult time just trimming it down to 14 pitchers. Imagine trying to trim it down to 13 pitchers, because Ohtani's not going to count as your 14th pitcher to begin with until he starts pitching. And then imagine trying to trim that down to one less than that to keep the spot open to send guys from Oklahoma City and back down. And then on top of that, the only guys you can actually do that with are guys that you don't want to do that with, which are Alex Vesia, Tony Gonsolin. So it's really, really a crazy – it almost is starting to sit like a situation that the Dodgers – they make a move. It's either Brazier or Bonda or whoever it may be out there, 26, May or whoever. And then they just say, hey, guys, these are our dudes. We'll see you in October. We'll see how we do. And Oklahoma City, becomes the best AAA team of all time.
Certainly would be quite the introduction to the Oklahoma City Comets in their first year as the Comets, but I'm sure that is not the goal for each one of those guys too, because they deserve to get opportunities at the big league level. And if they're just stuck down at Oklahoma City the entire year, their development and becoming big league pitchers is not going to happen this year. Yeah. And they're not going to grow as much as they need to, and they're not going to get the opportunities. And teams are going to wonder, why are they down in AAA? The reason why would be because the math says that they're down, but that also is an indication to other teams, hey, they sent them down for the entire season. Maybe they're not as good as we think that they are, and their trade value goes down too. So that also is not a very good strategy for trying to build up the value of those players as well and continue with their development. So it's a complicated issue that the Dodgers have to deal with. And I'm sure that they have one goal in mind: win the World Series this year. And how they go about it, there's a lot of different avenues to be able to get to that point. I would prefer if they would give or make sure that they give some innings to these guys, if for nothing else, to keep the arms as healthy as they possibly can be during October, because I believe even with utilizing a lot of these different arms from Oklahoma City, even with utilizing guys like Andy Pages and James Outman, that this team is still going to be good enough to be able to make the playoffs and probably win the division as well. We saw the San Diego Padres lose out on Ha-Sung Kim, not Hae-Sung Kim, who the Dodgers got. Ha-Sung Kim, who we've been talking about quite a lot, has signed a 2-year deal with the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were during the 2024 season. So a lot of stuff going on in San Diego. I think the Dodgers have the ability to be able to win the division. So I think doing whatever they can to provide experience for these guys, and most importantly, keep the guys that are currently on the roster that you want to rely upon in October healthy, that's going to be important, because you cannot rely upon Tyler Glass now to pitch 150 innings and then have him pitch ready to go in October. That's not going to work. I don't think it's something where you're going to rely on a lot of these different pitchers to pitch deep into the regular season and then be completely worn out by October. And if you don't have the ability to send guys up and down, that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's all Casey and I are trying to do right now, is try to find different red flags that could happen for this team, because we see how much talent. We recognize that the Dodgers have the potential to build a dynasty right here. And we're trying to find areas that the dynasty could potentially fall under. And if they overutilize the guys because they do not have any flexibility out of the pitching rotation, that could lead to the downfall of the 2025 Los Angeles Dodgers. And that is something that we desperately want to avoid.
Yeah. Super excited about all the non-roster invitees. And it's a non-roster invitee. As you look at all these transactions, I'm going to flip this over. And non-writer, I said this, I mentioned this the other day on the show. The non-roster invitees are just all the guys that, I mean, it's a formality. The Dodgers are just basically formally saying, hey, we like you and we're inviting you to spring training, kind of as just a symbol of how much we think about you. But it's all the guys that are on the 40-man roster that are being invited to have time on the main field, right? So here you see Joe Jock was the last one. Zaire Hope, Chris Oakey, a catcher that the Dodgers just signed strictly for depth. No other reason. He'll probably catch one time a week. That's it. He will not take into the time of Hunter Fiducia and Dalton Rushing. Jared Karros, I've been saying over and over and over, this guy I think has a chance to make his major league debut this year. Same with Carlos Duran. I just wrote an article today. Duran was in that article. Super excited about him. Ryan Ward has had a huge offseason. Talked to Alex Friedman about him. Hey, GLP, Griffin Lockwood Powell, man, don't sleep on that guy. We had a question about the catcher. Now that Tyler Lorenzo's gone, Griffin Lockwood Powell, he has a big body. Now, he's not necessarily a power hitter, but he is a guy now that you don't have like a Tyrone Lorenzo. I think he's probably him or Janer Fernandez, maybe a Jesus Calise is next in line. Here's Jose Rodriguez. Jose Hernandez, you remember he got taken in the Rule 5, and he got he spent a year and a half in Pittsburgh at the major league level. Josue De Paula, Roki Sasaki, Alex Freeland, Cody Hosey, Dalton Rushing, David Bodie, Austin Gauthier, Jackson Ferris. Jesus. I mean, this is a non-roster invitee list that could possibly, and then if you were to add all the guys that are actually going to start in AAA, like Landon Nakbin, Kasparius, Bobby Miller, James Outman, or Andy Paez, and you add them to all these non-roster invitee guys, that's a team that, honestly, I'm not joking, they could make the playoffs in the major leagues, possibly. I mean, you're gonna have a starting rotation of Kasparius and Miller and Knack and Robleski, and then you're gonna have position. I mean, it's just ridiculous the amount of time. I mean, the names on here of the non-roster invitees are absolutely amazing. And so what we're going to do is on our Friday show, Austin and I are going to cover a lot of these guys in depth. I'm getting ready to release some articles every day as far as I'm going to break them down into 5. Like today was relief-type pitchers, and hopefully by the time spring training's over, I have articles with everybody. And then for certain ones like Jack Dreyer today, I'm going to release individual articles. So what strikes you about that non-roster invitee list, Austin?
Oh, there's a lot of talent there. And this is something that when spring training comes around, a lot of fans are excited about the first couple of innings to see the Shohei Ohtani, the Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freeman, and all the different starters play for the first couple of innings of the game. And then it gets to the later innings and it's like, hey, I don't necessarily know all of these guys, or it's a bunch of guys that are on the non-roster invite list or guys coming over from minor league camp. And honestly, that is the most exciting part of spring training, because they're getting an opportunity. And I think they're rewarding some of these guys that put a lot of effort in, and deservedly so should get opportunities to face up against as high level of pitching as they possibly can, even guys that aren't going to see big league time during this upcoming season. I'm excited, and I think it's worthwhile for some of the position players like Ryan Ward, like a Cody Hosey, and like an Austin Gauthier, all these guys who it's difficult right now to see them cracking this big league roster right now, just given the way that the roster is put out. But getting them additional at-bats against high leverage competition, I think is going to be something that's really exciting. You infuse a lot of younger guys that are at the minor league level that a lot of people are excited about, with like a Zaire Hope, with a Josue de Paula. All of those different guys have a lot of talent, and being able to see them as they're starting to get closer to the upper levels of the minor league system, with Josue de Paula potentially either in Great Lakes or Tulsa this upcoming season, and then Zaire Hope probably and hopefully gets to play a lot in Great Lakes, selfishly, because we've seen a lot of Great Lakes games this upcoming season. You get to see them infused in talent, as well as there's going to be a lot of good competition. I'm excited to see Jose Hernandez back in the organization again and seeing what he's able to do and how he looks. And a lot of these other pitchers, while it seems like, hey, these are just a bunch of random names, remember last year, the Dodgers utilized a lot of guys that were non-roster invites during spring training during the course of the regular season. It's very crowded, so it's difficult to see how that could take place this upcoming season. But I think there is reason to believe, based on past history, that the Dodgers might turn to some of these guys during the regular season. So it's important to get to know each one of these guys and watch them compete for a big league journey. And I think that's one of the things that's exciting about watching the minor league level, is being able to watch these guys fight, scratch, claw, and compete for a big league job. This is exactly what these guys are going to be doing during spring training, is scratching, clawing for big league opportunities, and to be able to showcase not to just to the Dodgers, but to 29 other teams that they are worthy of getting an opportunity. And I think that is what's so exciting about spring training, is it's another opportunity for these guys to showcase the skill level and talent that I think both you and I have seen at the minor league level for many of these guys, or in other organizations have showcased a lot of skills and talents, and be able to showcase that to all other teams. It's going to be really exciting to watch, especially because the Dodgers seem to broadcast every single one of their spring training games, which is something that I think all organizations should do, because it's fun and exciting.
So I hope this doesn't sound braggadocious. I hope it just sounds like I'm excited. So this is what I get to do, okay? Spring training, okay? I get to watch all these guys that I know and that I root for, okay? All of the prospects play on the main field next to all the Hall of Famers, right? I know the announcers. I've had Tim Neverett on. I've had Steven Nelson on. So sometimes, every once in a while, they'll message and hey, what do you know about this guy? What do you have on that guy? And actually, they'll use what I give them on the air. So I get to listen to two guys that I love listening to broadcast, that I've had a chance to meet and talk to, and I get to hear them broadcast guys like Ryan Ward that I've interviewed. I've talked to him 50 times, right? Yeah. I mean, we have so like spring training for me is easily one of the best parts of the season, because it's just like, it's just constant, like, this is awesome, that's awesome, this is awesome. And the whole part, I mean, I've seen Mookie Betts play before. I'm one of those weird guys. I can't wait till the fifth inning's over, and like Ohtani and Freeman and those guys grab their bags and walk down the left field line, because I can't wait to watch Jose Hernandez. I can't wait to watch Jackson Ferris. I can't wait to watch Jack Dreyer, the Maytag. I can't wait to watch Wardo or Cody Hosey. That's the point. That's when I start getting really excited. Oh, yeah. And also, the cool part of it is, Austin, if that's that part of it, keep hanging out here at Dodgers Dawgs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network, because we are going to be all over those spring training games, the entire part of it, and we're going to have all sorts of stuff on innings 4 through 9, just not 1 through 4, and it's going to be super exciting. So, hey, I hate to do this, but I'm getting ready to go to an Oklahoma State women's basketball game. They're really good this year, and they're a lot of fun. The beautiful bride of 25 years and I are going to head over to Stillwater, Oklahoma right now. We're going to check out some awesome basketball. So we're going to cut this short. That's also why we went on early. So final thoughts, Austin. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this short. One, I wanted to relate a little bit to what you tied into there, and I think something that was really important is that what Alex Friedman said yesterday during the interview that was released, the play-by-play broadcaster for the Oklahoma City Comets, is your view and perspective on the game of baseball changes a little bit once you start to get to know a lot of these players. And that is something that Casey has had the privilege to be able to do, get to interview a lot of these players, and I've had the privilege to do, getting to know players and personnel within the organization, me through Great Lakes, Casey through the venture at Dodgers Dawgs, Dodgers Daily, and through Oklahoma City and Tulsa. It's been really fun to be able to watch, and I think those stories are just absolutely amazing. And so the non-roster invite is about opportunity and to be able to showcase these guys just how talented they are, which, believe me, these guys are incredibly talented, and I'm super excited for spring training. Spring training games start in 22 days. Pitchers and catchers report in 12 days. It's coming up really quick. We'll see what move the Dodgers make. It's super exciting, though. It's the best time to be a Dodgers fan right now.
It absolutely is, and I can't thank all of you wonderful Dodgers dogs out there as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Hey, we go on 2 or 3 hours early. It's 3:30 on the West Coast, and we have almost 100 people watching, Austin. We have the best fans out there, don't we?
Oh, yeah. No, you guys are amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. Every time we go live, I'm reminded just how amazing you guys are.
Hey, and I'm going to say this on the air so Austin doesn't have to. Austin got his money today that paid for his spark plugs on his car. So all of you Dodgers dogs out there that donated to that cause, I wanted to make sure you know Austin got all that plus a little bit on top of that too. So Austin's car is taken care of thanks to all of you Dodgers dogs out there. So I know you're super thankful for that, aren't you, Austin?
Yeah, super grateful for you guys for being able to help out with that. Sir, it's amazing. Car seems to be operating and functioning back again. Good. So that's very good, and I'm excited to utilize that car to be able to go on all these road trips coming up in, I believe, 65 days now until Great Lakes season starts, which, by the way, congratulations to Jair Fernandez back again as the manager of the Great Lakes Loons.
Yeah. So, hey, Austin, love you. You know, I love the Dodgers dogs out there, but I love the beautiful bride of 25 years more. So, got to go, man. It's a great day to be a Dodger.